Flowers vanish at son's grave, so dad hides camera. She couldn't believe it. Could someone really have the audacity to do this? It wasn't just about her, it was about the memory of her son. How dare they take the things that she brought to him? Her husband was just as surprised as her. They had to think of a way to catch the culprit, but how? Jacob and Tashana Armstrong live in Oklahoma with their 2 children. When Tashana got pregnant with their 3rd child, they couldn't contain their joy. But things wouldn't end as they had hoped. After carrying their unborn son for 9 months, they tragically lost him at birth. They mourned their son, McCade, and decided to give him the burial he deserved. The couple spared no expense for their son's burial. They got a beautiful plaque that read McCade Armstrong, son of Jacob and Tashana Armstrong. The plaque was also engraved with an ornate cross. It dulled the pain somewhat to feel that they had done right by their son and been good parents in the one act they could do for him. But there was one thing that they didn't consider. Before they would invite their children to come to honor their sibling's memory, Jacob and Tashana felt that they wanted some alone time with him as his parents. Jacob would clean the plaque every time they visited him. The couple held each other and commemorated their son together. It was not time for them to bring the children too. What helped them cope was visiting McCade's grave every week. They now brought their children and even the family dog to show McCade, wherever he was, that he was still a very important part of their lives. They let their children play some of their favorite toys on McCade's grave to show him they were still his siblings and they loved him. So with flowers and toys left on his grave, the family held hands and stood in silence until it came time to go. They said goodbye and promised they'd visit next week. But they could never consider what they'd see when they came back. Jacob held his wife and assured her that he'd do whatever it took to find out what had happened to their son's gifts. A million thoughts flooded his mind. Maybe animals like raccoons came into the cemetery and took them, curious animals that they are. Maybe it was against their policies to leave things on the graves. Whatever the reason, he'd figure it out. With all of the innocent explanations that run through Jacob's mind, there was one that he couldn't shake. And this one was more sinister. He hoped that it wasn't true, but one thought dawned on him that made shivers go up and down his spine. Even with the general sanctity the cemeteries have, Jacob had once read an article of someone with the audacity to steal things from the graves of grieving families. He just hoped he was wrong. Jacob knew the only way to catch was to hatch an ingenious plan. The cemetery didn't have any security cameras, so he'd have to leave his own setup to catch the grave robber. He didn't want the thief or someone else to see his camera and steal that too. It would just be another loss for them and a win for the thief. Jacob got a subtle camera without any kind of light that would alert the thief. He painted it brown and hid it in the bushes so no one would notice it. Now he just had to wait. But after waiting a week and reviewing the footage, Jacob couldn't believe what he was looking at. There was his son's grave, and there was the culprit, the reason why the toys were missing. He could feel his anger rising inside of him. Jacob called for Tashana to look at the footage and confirm what he was looking at. She raced in, eager to find out what had happened to the gifts they'd left their son. But she wasn't prepared for what she was about to see. The footage showed a man and a woman arrived at the cemetery, nothing out of the ordinary. But then they both strolled towards McCade's grave. The two lingered for a while before doing something that made Tashana's blood boil. The man walked up to their precious son's grave and had the audacity to just pluck something right off of the headstone. Tashana couldn't believe it. How dare he? To make things even worse, the woman now thought it was her turn to take an item from the grave. How long had they been doing this? Were there others? Regardless, Jacob and Tashana would make sure that these two paid for their crimes. They gave the footage to Chief Logsdon of North Enid Police Department, who promised whose sister also passed at birth and was buried close to McCade. The officer felt that he would solve the case no matter what and told reporters it would be hard to find a more defenseless victim than someone buried out here. Officer Logsdon managed to identify the man in the footage as 77-year-old Alfred Boyer. After being confronted, he admitted to the crime and was charged with petty larceny. When asked if he had anything to comment, he said, "I just don't know, crazy. Normally I wouldn't do that." He even wanted to apologize personally to the family. "I'm sorry I did that," Boyer said. "I'm not a bad person." With Boyer arrested, the police quickly found the other woman in the photo who pled guilty and already had numerous arrest warrants for similar crimes. With both thieves caught, McCade's grave could stay untouched while the family visited and honored his memory with gifts from the heart. But what did they think about the initial incident? Jacob and Tashana said that it was heartbreaking when asked to comment on how it felt to see some stranger steal from their son's grave. The couple won't forget that their closure with their son was tampered with by strangers who didn't understand the gravity of what they were doing. Still, they said that at least they caught who was responsible, and now they can continue to honor and remember their son without any interference. The way he would have wanted them to.